What would you do? If you woke up in a hospital bed and the nurse whispered that your family had already planned your funeral, that they'd declared you dead for a $300,000 insurance payout. My name is Cassandra Hayes, but most people call me Cassie. I'm 28 years old, and until recently I thought betrayal meant a friend turning their back on you or a boyfriend cheating, not your parents filing insurance papers while you're still breathing. When I first opened my eyes in the hospital, everything was a blur. My ribs screamed in pain, my head felt like it had been split in two, and a heart monitor beeped steadily beside me. The antiseptic scent stung my nose. And then came the voice, the one I'll never forget. "She doesn't know yet," the nurse whispered just outside my door. "Her parents think she died in the crash." I didn't understand at first. I was groggy, confused. But those words sank into my bones. That night, I learned the most shocking truth of my life. My parents thought I was dead, or they wanted people to think I was. Let me take you back to where this all began. I grew up in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood in suburban Pennsylvania. Our 2-story house had peeling blue paint and a swing set that rusted before I hit my teens. My mom, Marilyn, was obsessed with appearances: crisp linen, spotless kitchen, polite smiles. My dad, Harold, kept the outside crumbling while pretending everything inside was perfect. When I was little, I thought their tight grip on money was just normal. Money doesn't grow on trees. Cassandra, my mother, would scold if I asked for anything remotely indulgent like a backpack with actual padding. "Every penny saved is a penny earned," my father would chime in. But somehow, they always found enough to upgrade their car, take weekends away without me. I became the low-maintenance child, which was just code for invisible. After I graduated from Penn State with a degree in marketing, I got an offer from a top firm in Chicago. It should have been a proud moment. Instead, my announcement over pot roast was met with icy disapproval. "Chicago is so expensive," Mom said, her fork paused mid-air. "You should stay close to home," Dad added. "Find a nice man. What's the point of success if you end up alone?" I didn't care. I left. And for a while, distance helped. Our weekly calls were just updates, wins. I carefully curated disappointments I filtered out. My life became a highlight reel they could tolerate. But things changed the moment I stopped needing them. When I bought a new couch, my mother scowled during a video call. What was wrong with the old one? "Nothing," I replied. "I just wanted something more comfortable." "Waste of money," she muttered. My dad sat in silence beside her, always complicit in her quiet disdain. Still, they were my parents. So when my company offered an upgraded life insurance policy as part of my promotion, $300,000, and my father suggested I name them as beneficiaries, I didn't hesitate. "You're not married," he said. "Who else would you choose?" It made sense. I signed the papers. I had no idea that signature would almost become my death warrant. Life in Chicago was lonely sometimes, sure. My coworkers, Amelia and Creative Jackson in accounting, were friendly, but kept their distance outside of work. I filled weekends with Netflix overpriced Thai takeout and scrolling through people's highlight reels that looked better than mine. Sometimes I wondered if my parents had been right. Was all this independence really worth the solitude? Last Christmas I visited home, and everything felt off. My mom's first comment, "You've gotten thin. People will think we starved you." The house looked tired. Worn furniture, missing jewelry from my mother's collection, my dad out with friends every evening and coming home with alcohol on his breath. On the third night, I opened the junk drawer in the kitchen, looking for a bottle opener, and found something else entirely. Bills, debt notices, final warnings, a second mortgage, collection agencies, maxed out credit cards. I confronted them. My father exploded. "Snooping through our private papers. That's how you repay our hospitality? Dad, are you gambling again?" His face turned red. "My recreational activities are none of your business." My mom jumped in to defend him. "Your father works hard. He deserves entertainment. Entertainment that's costing you the house," I shot back. It all spiraled from there. I left 3 days early, furious and heartbroken, driving through snow that blanketed everything like a fresh lie. That was the last time I saw them before they tried to erase me. The car crash should have been the worst thing that happened to me. But waking up alive, only to realize my parents had already claimed the money. That's when the real nightmare began. January 7th, just another Monday. I woke up early, 5:30 a.m., hit the gym in my apartment building, then showered, grabbed coffee, and headed into work. We had a major pitch that day, one that kept me in the office until nearly 10 p.m. Outside Chicago had turned into a snow globe. Thick flakes floated down as I took the long way home, humming to myself. That's when it happened. As I turned onto the on-ramp for Lakeshore Drive, my car hit a slick patch of black ice. Suddenly, everything slowed down. My tires lost grip. The wheel spun uselessly in my hands. My car twisted sideways across 3 lanes headlights, catching the guardrail just seconds before impact. Then nothing but metal screaming and the violent crunch of steel as my car plummeted off the edge and toward the frozen lake below. I don't remember hitting the bottom, just the sickening lurch, the pop of the airbag, and the taste of blood in my mouth. Then, darkness. I woke up 3 days later, my body barely functioning with pain, radiating from every joint and limb. A nurse appeared. Her name was Bethany. She was the one who broke the news. "You're lucky to be alive," she said softly. "You've got 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a fractured collarbone, concussion bruises, and a few cuts, but you made it." I nodded weakly, confused, still fighting the fog in my brain. Did my parents come? She hesitated just for a moment, but I saw it. "I'll check on that," she said, adjusting my IV. Bethany stayed by my side that whole week. She was kind, quiet, but present. She brought me extra pudding cups, sat with me when I cried from pain or panic. I started to trust her, but something still didn't make sense. Why hadn't anyone come to see me? I didn't have a phone. It had been destroyed in the crash. My apartment was locked. My company hadn't heard from me. And still, no visitors, no calls, no flowers. Every time I asked, the nurses deflected. Then came the 5th day. I woke to the sound of voices outside my room. "It's the strangest case," someone said. Family already identified a body as hers. "Funerals this weekend," a second voice replied. "But she's here, alive." It's a legal nightmare. My skin went cold. I hit the call button until Bethany appeared startled. "What is going on?" I demanded. "Why does someone think I'm dead?" She looked torn, like she was about to break some rule. Then she sighed and sat down beside my bed. "There was another woman in the crash that night," she said gently. "She didn't make it. She looked a little like you, same build, similar features. Your parents. They identified her body as yours." "That's not possible," I whispered. "They'd know me." "They didn't ask to see the body," she said. "They handed over your dental records. And there was a clerical mistake. The match was incorrect, but they accepted it." My head spun. They didn't even look at her. They just believed I was gone. Bethany nodded slowly, and "They've already filed for the life insurance payout." I stared at her, stunned. "You're saying—" "They think I'm dead, and they're collecting on it." "I'm saying the police have questions," she said carefully. "You'll be speaking with someone soon." Bethany's role, upgrade twist. Later, I learned it was Bethany, my nurse, who made the call to authorities. Something about the situation didn't sit right with her, and she dug into my file, saw the insurance note, and flagged it. She wasn't just my nurse. She became my ally. The reason I got the chance to fight back. The next day, Detective Marcus Franklin walked into my room, a tall man with warm eyes and a badge that suddenly made everything feel very real. He introduced himself, sat by my bed, and said, "Miss Hayes, I'm sorry for the circumstances, but I need to ask you a few hard questions." He had a folder in his hand, my file. Inside, the life insurance policy, the false identification report, the insurance claim, everything. Piece by piece, the truth unraveled. My parents refused to view the body, claiming emotional trauma. They handed over my dental records, which were misfiled. Within 48 hours, they had a death certificate. By day 3, they filed for my $300,000 life insurance payout. And by day 4, they'd received a partial payment, $50,000. You were worth more dead than alive to them, Detective Franklin said softly. I threw up into a plastic bin Bethany held under my chin. This wasn't just a mistake. It was betrayal. How do you face people who sold your death like it was a business deal easy? You walk into your own funeral. The hospital walls felt like they were closing in. The pain from my injuries was manageable with meds, but the pain from what I'd discovered, that had no prescription. Detective Franklin came every day. He brought updates, evidence, questions. I asked him once, "Are you sure they knew I was alive before the funeral?" He didn't even blink. They were contacted by police, he said. We left messages, sent emails. But your parents didn't return a single call. Why not? Because by then they'd already filed the claim, and they'd already received $50,000 of your policy. A few days later, he returned with something even worse. They've scheduled your funeral. It's this Saturday. Westlake Funeral Home. Closed casket, of course. I laughed bitterly. What's in the casket? He looked uncomfortable. Nothing. The other woman's body is still in the city morgue. They're using an empty box, an empty casket, for their very much alive daughter. Then came the breaking point. They used the payout to put a deposit on a vacation property in Florida, Franklin said. That was it. Something inside me snapped. I want to be there, I told him, at the funeral. I want to see their faces when I walk through the doors. He hesitated. Cassie. Are you sure? More sure than I've ever been. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. They erased me. I needed to remind them I'm still here. Over the next few days, Franklin and the DA's office coordinated with local authorities in Pennsylvania. Officers would be at the funeral disguised as staff. They would wait until my parents delivered their eulogies, and then we'd walk in. The confrontation would be public, emotional, risky, but also unforgettable. My doctor didn't want to release me for travel, but I insisted. You're not fully healed, she warned. Your ribs, your collarbone. I survived a crash and emotional execution, I said. This is closure. We drove 800 miles to my hometown in an unmarked vehicle accompanied by a state officer. I rested in the back, every bump in the road, a painful reminder of what my parents had nearly gotten away with. We arrived the night before. Amelia and Jackson had flown in from Chicago. They met me at the hotel with takeout and warm hugs. You really gonna do this? Jackson asked. Yeah, I said. They tried to erase me. I won't let them write my ending. I barely slept that night. My black dress hung on the door, the same one I'd wear not as a mourner, but as a resurrected daughter. The morning of the funeral, it was gray, drizzling, almost cinematic, like the sky knew what was about to happen. We parked a block from Westlake Funeral Home. I watched through the window as mourners filed inside. My parents walked in around 8 a.m., checking arrangements, greeting guests, playing the roles of grieving parents. I wanted to throw up again, but I didn't. I held steady. Detective Ramirez met us at the side door. Everything's in place, she said. 4 officers inside posing as staff, 2 more at the exits. We wait until the service starts. At exactly 11:10 a.m., my father stood at the podium. My daughter, Cassandra, was the light of our lives, he said, voice thick with fake emotion. We take comfort knowing she lived a full, beautiful life. Behind him stood a giant photo of me, my college graduation, smiling. I stood at the back, staring at the photo and the empty casket, my ribs aching from adrenaline. And then my mother stepped up. Cassandra was everything to us, she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I keep expecting her to call, to hear her voice one more time. And then she turned back down the aisle, whispered something to my father. Your life's worth more dead than alive, darling, she said with a small laugh. 300,000 more. I heard every word. So did Detective Franklin. So did the officer with his hand on his radio. That was the moment. Now I whispered. I stepped into the aisle. My heels echoed on the polished floor as people began to turn. Gasps, murmurs. A woman in the back row shrieked, and then my mother saw me. She froze. Her face turned ghost white. The tissue dropped from her hand. She stumbled back right into the empty casket. My father blinked. Once. Twice. He moved to speak, but said nothing. I walked straight down the aisle, eyes locked on them. "Hello, Mother, Father," I said. "Sorry I'm late." To my own funeral. They mourned me like grieving saints. But when the handcuffs came out, their masks dropped, and the truth hit harder than any crash ever could. I stood at the front of the chapel. 40 stunned mourners stared at me like I was a ghost. My face, my bruises, my body broken, but very much alive. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just stared at the people who had tried to erase me. My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. My father took a single step forward, his voice shaking. "Cassandra." "It's a miracle," he said, reaching toward me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said, coldly. "I heard what you said. 300,000 more. You really thought you'd get away with it." He dropped the act instantly. His face hardened, slipping into the version I remembered from my teenage years. The version that blamed me when things didn't go his way. "You don't understand," he hissed. "We were desperate. Desperate enough to kill me on paper. The chapel had descended into chaos. Gasps, whispers, murmurs. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Someone else had their phone out already recording. That's when Detective Ramirez stepped forward. Badge out voice, loud and clear. "Harold and Marilyn Hayes, you are under arrest for insurance fraud, falsifying a death report, and criminal misrepresentation of identity." She read their rights as 2 uniformed officers flanked them. My mother snapped out of her daze. "This is absurd," she shrieked. "We thought she was dead. It was all a mistake." "A mistake that came with a real estate deposit," Detective Franklin said dryly, "and 4 calls to the insurance company pushing for expedited payment." "You ungrateful brat," my father shouted at me, twisting against the officer's grip. "Ungrateful," I repeated. "You tried to profit off my death. What exactly was I supposed to be grateful for?" He lunged barely an inch before being restrained. "You abandoned us for some job in Chicago," my mother cried. "You don't know what we were going through." "Actually, I do," I said. "I found the second mortgage letters, the casino charges, the missed payments." The whispers around us grew louder. Former neighbors, old teachers, childhood friends watching their perfect image of my family crumble. I spotted Mrs. Bennett, my old high school English teacher, staring at me with tear-filled eyes. "Oh, Cassie," she whispered. "We thought—" I didn't respond. I couldn't. I watched as my parents were led out of the chapel, hands-cuffed heads bowed not in shame but strategy. My mother was already crying for the cameras. Outside, the press was waiting. Headlines were already being written. Daughter crashes her own funeral. Parents arrested for $300,000 insurance fraud. Dead woman walks into chapel, exposes scam. Inside, I stood alone beside the empty casket meant to hold a lie. My hands trembled. My ribs throbbed. My chest burned. But I was still standing. Amelia and Jackson rushed to my side. "You did it," Amelia whispered. "You faced them." Jackson glanced at the casket. "Weirdest funeral I've ever been to. And I once went to one with a mariachi band and no body either." I laughed. Actually laughed. A wild, broken sound that melted into sobs. For the first time since the crash, I let myself grieve not just the betrayal, but the fantasy I'd clung to my whole life. The idea that my parents loved me. The next few days were a blur. Statements, court appearances, headlines. Detective Franklin helped shield me from the media. The district attorney arranged meetings to prep for trial. And one day I asked him, "Did they say anything after the arrest your father confessed?" Franklin told me. He claims it was all about the debts. He says your mother pushed the insurance idea, but he didn't stop it. And my mother, she says she thought you were dead. I almost laughed again. She looked me in the eyes, I said, and said, 300,000 more. She knew exactly what she was doing. Some people never admit fault, he replied. They tried to put me in the ground with lies. But in court with the world watching, I buried their fake love for good. The trial didn't start right away. There were arraignments, bail hearings, and endless motions filed by their lawyers. But I was there for every minute of it, even when I didn't want to be, even when it made my stomach twist into knots. Because this wasn't just a legal battle, it was a reckoning. At the preliminary hearing, I sat in the gallery while they were brought in one after the other. My mother in a stiff navy blue dress, hair neatly done, face like stone. She didn't glance my way, not once. My father in the orange jumpsuit looked like someone had peeled 20 years off his life, but he did look at me, just once. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just looked back. The evidence was stacked like bricks. 4 calls to the insurance company. Financial records showing gambling debts over $200,000. A Florida condo deposit made 2 days after my death. Online searches from my father's laptop. How to prove death with no body. Can insurance payouts be reversed? And of course, the audio. The words spoken at my funeral. 300,000 more. We didn't need her. We needed the money. Even their lawyers didn't try to deny the fraud. They just spun it. My father's lawyer said it was desperation. Mr. Hayes feared for his life. Illegal loan sharks were making threats. He saw the insurance money as the only way out. My mother's attorney went further. She was confused, grieving, emotionally manipulated by her husband. Her belief that her daughter had died was sincere. The judge, Harriet Coleman, wasn't buying it. This wasn't grief, she said. It was greed dressed in mourning clothes. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed. Cassie, do you feel safe? Do you plan to forgive your parents? Are you speaking at the sentencing? I didn't answer. There were no headlines neat enough to capture the mess I was living through. But I did decide one thing. When the time came, I would give a statement. Not for them, for me. The night before their sentencing, I received a letter from prison, from my father. It sat on my coffee table for hours before I opened it. His handwriting was unmistakable, slanted, neat, exact. Cassie, I know I don't deserve your time, but I hope you'll read this. Prison has a way of showing you your soul, and mine is ugly. The gambling started small, the lies bigger, and when the accident happened, I saw a way out. Not a proud one, not a good one, just a way. It wasn't about not loving you. It was about not loving myself enough to stop digging before I buried everything. Your mother refuses to acknowledge what we did. She says it was a mistake. I know better. I don't ask for forgiveness. Just that you live a life far, far away from the shadow we cast over you. With shame, Dad. I read it 3 times. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to understand. At the sentencing, the courtroom was packed. I took the stand. I looked straight ahead, voice calm, hands steady. I survived a crash that should have killed me, I said. But what nearly destroyed me wasn't the ice or the impact. It was learning that my parents used my accident as a lottery ticket. My mother, who once scolded me for spending too much on a couch, bought herself a Florida beach condo using blood money. My father, who taught me how to ride a bike, tried to ride out his debts on my grave. They didn't just betray me. They ended any illusion I had that I mattered more to them than money. When I finished, the room was silent. Judge Coleman spoke last. To exploit a daughter's supposed death for financial gain is heinous, she said. But to do it with the composure and precision you both exhibited is chilling. She sentenced my mother to 8 years. My father, who had cooperated and pleaded guilty, received 5 years with a chance of parole after 3. As he was led away, he looked back. I gave him the smallest nod. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement of his humanity, of mine. They declared me dead, but I built a life more alive than anything they ever imagined, and I turned their betrayal into something that saves others. 6 months after the sentencing, the bruises on my body had healed, but the bruises on my spirit, they took longer. Chicago had become too heavy with memories of the crash, the hospital, the betrayal. So I moved. Seattle, a new coast, a new start. I took a job with a marketing agency overlooking Puget Sound. The gray skies felt honest. The constant rain matched the quiet inside me. My therapist, Dr. Powell, referred me to Dr. Liam Richardson in Seattle, a trauma specialist. He didn't tell me to forgive. He didn't ask me to let go. He said, your parents' actions reflect their limitations, not your worth. Those words stayed with me. Healing wasn't instant. It wasn't clean. Some days I woke up ready to hike, to create, to laugh. Other days I couldn't get out of bed. But slowly I stopped looking over my shoulder. I met Elena, my neighbor, a pediatric nurse with a sarcastic sense of humor and a love for horror movies. She never asked about my past, just showed up with snacks and space when I needed it. Then I met Martin from a hiking group. Thoughtful, steady, kind. When he told me he liked me, I froze. I don't trust easily, I warned him. The people who were supposed to love me didn't. I'm not them, he said softly, and I'm not going anywhere. Bit by bit, I let him in, but I knew I had to do more. I hadn't survived just to move on. I needed to transform what happened. So I created the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit that helps people betrayed by their families through financial fraud or identity abuse. We offer therapy referrals, legal aid, emergency support. Most people don't report financial abuse from family. The shame runs too deep. But I stood in a courtroom and faced down the people who were supposed to protect me. So now I help others do the same. That's how I met Andrew, a pro bono lawyer who specialized in elder and financial abuse. He started helping our foundation. Then he started helping me. One night over dinner, I told him everything. The crash, the fake funeral, the casket, the cuffs. He didn't blink. He said most people would have crumbled under that kind of betrayal. You turned it into a mission. His words shook something loose in me. I hadn't felt like a hero, but maybe surviving and then choosing to rise was its own kind of power. 1 year after the crash, I hiked to a viewpoint above the city. The air was cold, the wind sharp. I sat on a rock and looked down at the sound below, moving, relentless, free. I closed my eyes, and I forgave myself, not for trusting them, but for being human, for being hopeful, for surviving. I got one last letter from my father. He's teaching other inmates how to budget, taking counseling. He never asks for anything, just shares. My mother never wrote, not once. And I've stopped waiting. Some people choose truth. Others live in fiction. I've chosen to write my own story now. To the viewers still watching, if you've been betrayed by someone who should have loved you, if family became your first enemy, if your scars come from people who were supposed to shield you, you are not alone. Drop a comment below if you've lived through family betrayal. Share your story or just say same, because saying it out loud can be the first step toward healing. And if this story meant something to you, like subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. This was my journey. I didn't choose what happened to me, but I chose what came next.